So one of the key takeaways, probably the most startling, is the amount of cash that's being held and the likelihood that it will be held by clients and customers for some time to come. And the data that Andrew presented around the uncertainty amongst people in terms of when they think they might consider moving that cash into other assets, that uncertainty was widespread. So it seems that there's not a lot of response going on at the moment from the holders of cash. They're looking like they're going to hold that cash for some time yet.
I think for us was the large number of sort of self-directed investors, and I think their thirst for information in terms of how are they going to get from where they are today with very large cash holdings to move them into actually taking action on their investments, and the demand therefore for additional education and knowledge. I think that's a change from previously where they would have been prepared to take advice and act on that advice. Now they actually want to understand what are they getting into, why is that advice being given, and actually have a far better idea and feel that they're actually in control of the decision making.
Rather than sort of waiting for it to be ready to move, our approach is and will continue to be to engage with our clients and have conversations with them about what it is they're trying to achieve longer term for them and their families, and then compare and contrast that to the way they're currently holding their assets. And if indeed they are holding a large amount of their assets in cash, to have that conversation with them around, well, cash isn't necessarily the best place to have the majority of our assets longer term if you want to fulfil these aspirations, and we need to start talking about the gradual movement of cash into growth assets, whether that be for capital growth or for the driving of tax effective yield. We need to start that process, and it's best, I think, to do that over a period of time.
I think both challenges and opportunities, and I think the challenge certainly is to how do we as an organisation engage with our client base, and we principally work with advisors around the world. So how do we help advisors to better understand, particularly behavioural finance, and we're seeing that as being a very large demand in terms of how do they engage with clients, how do they help clients perhaps put some of the experiences they've had through the GFC and the investment experience they've had behind them, and focus on looking forward and what are the opportunities. And I think that certainly is a major issue, and we're spending a lot of time, we're working with Professor Dan O'Reilly from a university in the States to build out a support mechanism for advisors so that they can improve themselves as advisors to better understand themselves and how they actually talk about investments and understand behavioural finance, but also then be able to translate that and talk to their clients about it. And we think that's going to be a value add in terms of building our relationships, and also understanding perhaps the how to better use some of the more complex sort of investment strategies that are around that maybe they wouldn't have used in the past, but perhaps have more play going forward in client portfolios.
I think what it does is it validates the need to have thorough, quality conversations with our clients, and that's not just having one conversation once. That's actually having it on an ongoing basis, and it's not just with one member of the family. It's typically going to be the couple involved, and sometimes the children or adult children. So I think we need to be continually building our capabilities to have quality conversations with a range of members of the families that are our clients, and to make sure that they're continually engaged by us, that we're communicating to them, we're meeting their needs in terms of their understanding of what it is we're recommending and why, and that they feel like they're very much a part of the decision making.
What we're starting to see a little bit of that cash start to move now, only at the very early days, but we're certainly seeing a little bit of an uptick as a bit of confidence comes back into markets. I think we've seen the major sort of macro drivers of markets that have been the last 4 or 5 years being the large uncertainty in the US, for example, larger significant uncertainty in Europe starting to dissipate. And I think as that starts to dissipate with confidence in markets, we're starting to see a bit of a return to investing. It's early days, so there's still a lot more to go. From sort of investment opportunity perspective, I think we're certainly looking, sort of a different style of investing than people have done in the past. So I think people have looked at, sort of everything being benchmark relative. I want to be in Aussie equities. Do I therefore want an active manager or an index manager? I think we're seeing sort of maybe a movement away from that, starting to think about, well, what are my long-term needs as an investor, and I think advisors are starting to think about, and then how do I actually make sure we meet those needs. So, perhaps, I think we'll probably see longer term, a bit of a trend towards annuities, for example, but also more sort of income stream generating investments. So it takes some of a little bit more of the volatility out of investing. We also think that will lead to, a greater range of alternative investment strategies being included in client portfolios. Once we can get some some simplicity around the structures of those, but I certainly think we'll see a lot more expansion of that in client portfolios. That is moving away from everything being correlated and going up and down together to different sources of return, but also making and smoothing out the investment experience for clients, which I think is going to be very important going forward.
I just think that a lot of the data that Andrew presented just emphasised that there's a tremendous need for the services that we have, and particularly in the advice and wealth management space. So, we saw data that basically said that most people feel unsure, possibly a bit fearful, and are sitting on cash due to a default position. They don't know what to do. Their long-term needs and goals haven't changed. They would still have the same dreams and aspirations, but their willingness to perhaps do something about it seems to have stalled. So I just think that's a tremendous opportunity for us to educate our clients around what they really need to do with that money longer term to meet those goals and aspirations.